Welcome back to Mr. Morgan's desk. And in this video, in this today's lesson, we are going to have a few goals. In your iReady Reading ELA book, you should be on page 252, which you can see there, page 252. We'll go over page 252, 253, and I believe there is another page that will come up. 254 actually is the ending of the story, so we'll probably go through some of that and compare another historical event as they come up. And then the next couple of days will probably be spent going over the, comparing these sections. We might get to some of that today, but we'll see how far we get. In the end of this class, what you want to be able to do, what our I can statement, what you want to be able to do is to compare and contrast first and second-hand accounts of the same historical event. We did a little bit of this with the Titanic, and then we also want to be able to explain the sequence of events in a historical text. So a sequence of events, you would probably know this as a chronology. We could put things in chronological order or tell a story from beginning to end, and this would be a sequence of events. It's following that sequence down. So the words to know that would be important for this section, to space and back, there's a words to know section over here, which you can see in your book on page 252. Probably see in your book a little easier. It's probably a little easier to read and follow because yours is in color, mine's not. But it says, as you read, look inside, around, and beyond these words to figure out what they mean. And you can see they have the word launch. The word launch, you see this a lot with things related to space and spaceships. Spaceships are launched off the earth, and you'll see that used in context more. Something is brilliant. This means, usually it's used to mean like that it's intelligent or smart. If you watched the Harry Potter movies or you read the books, Ron Weasley frequently says it's brilliant, which he uses it more to mean that it's really cool, it's good, it's something spectacular, amazing. But really it usually has to do with intelligence in American English anyways. And then atmosphere is the area that is in the sky, and it's kind of what separates the air above us and before you reach the end of our Earth's atmosphere, our gravitational pull outside, that would be beyond our atmosphere. So it's still part of the Earth, but it's kind of in the sky above us, so the atmosphere. All right, and then to continue then, the Space and Back by Sally Ride. We will first read the story beginning in paragraph 1. Says, launch, minus 10 seconds, 9, 8, 7, the 3 launch engines light. The shuttle shakes and strains at the bolts, holding it to the launch pad. The computers check the engines. It isn't up to us anymore. The computers will decide whether we launch. 3, 2, 1, the rockets light. The shuttle leaps off the launch pad in a cloud of steam and a trail of fire. Inside, the ride is rough and loud. Our heads are rattling around inside our helmets. We can barely hear the voices from mission control in our headsets above the thunder of the rockets and engines. For an instant, I wonder if everything is working right. But there's no time to wonder and no time to be scared. In only a few seconds, we zoom past the clouds. 2 minutes later, the rockets burn out, and with a brilliant whitish-orange flash, they fall away from the shuttle as it streaks on toward space. Suddenly, the ride becomes very, very smooth and quiet. The shuttle is still attached to the big tank, and the launch engines are pushing us out of the Earth's atmosphere. The sky is black. All we can see of the trail of fire behind us is a faint pulsating glow through the top window. And I'm moving on to page 253. You should read along in your book for a better reading experience, but I have it on the screen here as well. Launch plus 6 minutes. The force pushing us against the backs of our seats steadily increases. We can barely move because we are being held in place by a force of 3 Gs. 3 times the force of gravity we feel on Earth. At first, we don't mind it. We've all felt much more than that when we've done acrobatics in our jet training airplanes. But that lasted only a few seconds, and this seems to go on forever. After a couple of minutes of 3 Gs, we're uncomfortable, straining to hold our books on our laps and craning our necks against the force to read the instruments. I find myself wishing we'd hurry up and get into orbit. Launch plus 8.5 minutes. The launch engines cut off. Suddenly the force is gone, and we lurch forward in our seats. During the next few minutes, the empty fuel tanks drops away and falls to Earth, and we are very busy getting the shuttle ready to enter orbit. But we're not too busy to notice that our books and pencils are floating in midair. We're in space. You can see a picture here. Obviously, yours is probably better in your book. But this says, Sally Ride, the first American woman to go into space, shared her thoughts, feelings, and experiences in her memoir, To Space and Back, which you might notice that Sally Ride, To Space and Back, To Space and Back. This woman is the author of this article. This day in history. So this is noting something from a different perspective. It's sharing some thoughts on the same idea. This is June 18th, 1983. Notice that I believe this was this is the same event, I think. It doesn't give the date on this, but I'm pretty sure this is the exact same event. So we'll read this one. June 18th, this is a memorable milestone's space shuttle missions. A crowd of about 250,000 gathered early that bright June morning at Cape Canaveral, Florida, many wearing Ride, Sally Ride t-shirts across the nation. Many others watched and waited. Suddenly, the engines ignited. The smoke and steam billowed across the site. Then booster rockets lifted the huge space shuttle slowly into the air, gathered speed. The Challenger blasted off into orbit for its second mission. At the same moment, one crew member mission specialist, Sally K. Ride, was rocketing into history. Ride was America's first woman to travel into space. Sally Ride had earned the right to be aboard the space shuttle. A physicist, she had been in astronaut training for 6 years. She had also worked at mission control, relaying messages to shuttle crews during earlier shuttle flights. Ride had even helped develop a robotic arm to use in space. This knowledge and experience had led Captain Bob Crippen to choose her as a crew member, and Ride was ready for the challenge. In just over 8 minutes, launch engines were lifting Challenger to its 184-mile-high orbit. During the ascent, Ride acted as flight engineer, calling out checklists to the pilots. She also joked with mission control about the exiting ride. Once in orbit, the 5 astronauts wasted little time. In the busy days ahead, the crew completed a number of experiments. This including using radar and a high-resolution camera to study the Earth's atmosphere. Ride helped launch 2 communication satellites. She also became the first woman to operate the shuttle's robotic arm by releasing a satellite into orbit. All right, so now we are going to do some assignments that relate to this, these articles that you have just completed reading. So probably today we'll only do page 255. We might make it a little further than that. It's only been 10 minutes so far, so I think we're doing pretty good on time. And so the first one here, the first part of this has us think. It says for us to use, I'm looking for a pen. I got a pen. It says for us, use what you learned from reading the memoir and the magazine article to respond to the following questions. Okay, and what are these questions? This question has 2 parts. First, answer part A, then answer part B. All right, so bear in mind, there are 2 parts to this question. Part A and Part B. We read it right here. Follow the directions. When in doubt, you can never go wrong with just following the directions. Which statement best describes the differences between the two accounts? From To Space and Back and Memorable Milestones, Space Shuttle Missions. All right, so we're going to look over these and then determine which is the best answer. One is a news article, the other is from an eyewitness who watched the launch. All right, well, that's partially true, but let's look and see if there's a better answer. Both are written by people who were at Cape Canaveral on June 18th, 1983. Well, most certainly Sally Ride was at Cape Canaveral. That's where the Challenger blasted off from. But the other article didn't actually say where they were from, so we don't know that. Part C, one was written at the time of the launch. The other was written several years later. Well, Sally Rides was written after the launch. Maybe she wrote some of it in space when she blasted off, but it doesn't really say that either. We don't know that. And then D says, one is based only on facts. The other is based on facts and personal experience. This is 100% true. There's no false statements. And we know this to be true from the article. We know that Sally Ride was there, and she describes her personal experience in blasting off. And the other is based on facts. So the magazine article, which was titled Memorable Milestones, Space Shuttle Missions, that one was written based on facts. And then To Space and Back was Sally Ride's personal memoir of the events that she experienced. So D should be the answer here. So I'm going to circle D, and that's all we need to do with that. So write a sentence from each passage that supports your answer to Part A. Okay, well, we have Part A, and we decided that it was only based on facts. Why would we say that? So one possible reason that we would say that is that To Space and Back, and that's the first one. So this is the one that was written by Sally. I'm going to put by Sally over here, just by Sally Ride. Sally Ride, just to keep them straight on which is which. And then this one, I didn't read the person that wrote it, but it was was it a magazine? Yeah, it was a magazine. Magazine. So that way it kind of helps keep straight which one we're referring to. You guys don't have to do that, but doing things like that, like noting which is which, can kind of help your brains keep it straight what it is that you're referring to. So, when you're answering questions like this, things like that can they can be helpful. So if you look at this article, we want to show, what we want to show then is that one, it only shares facts, so that would only mention up facts for the second one, the memorable milestones. But first, let's look at, it's easier to find the one by Sally, because all we have to do is find something personal that she included into it that is not just a fact, and then it would be very easy. So I see one right off the bat right here. It says, suddenly the ride becomes very, very smooth and quiet. All right, well, lots of astronauts have described things that way, but she describes it in her thing. So you could write that. You could write that it suddenly became very, very smooth and quiet. And then another example that I got from the book over here is that our heads are rattling around inside our helmets. So I'm going to write that one out. I'm going to write our heads are, you can't see me writing, but are rattling, A-T-T-E-L-I-N-G, or R-A-T-T, I spelled rattling wrong, R-A-T-T-L-I-N-G, rattling around, inside our helmets. Okay? And I'm going to put that in parentheses because it's a direct quote. So we're quoting her in that. Our heads, maybe you can't read my writing, but you can hear my voice right now. So you shouldn't be calling me over to ask for me to tell you what something says. You should be listening to the videos. But it says, our heads are rattling around inside our helmets. That's not something that's just a fact. If you were to say that as a fact, we could say that Sally Ride stated that their heads or her head was rattling around inside of her helmet. But it doesn't say it that way. It says it in the first person as if the person is experiencing it. So that makes it a good response for this one. The next part, memorable milestones. So this one we want to show that it's only based on facts. So we could say something like, the Ride was America's first woman to travel into space. Well, the reason that works so well for this is because it's told in the third person. It's told about somebody else. It's referring to Sally Ride. It's saying she, or it's saying Sally Ride was America's first woman to travel into space. So let's write that, and I'll tell you more about why that's a good use for this one. So Ride, I'm going to say, well, you just say Ride. You can just abbreviate it to her last name and say Ride was America's first woman to travel into space. First woman to travel into space. All right, and I'm going to put that in quotation marks because it is also a quote. We're quoting from the author of the magazine article. Ride was America's first woman to travel into space. So good job. We kind of nailed that. We kind of got that one down. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And so with that, the fact that we're speaking of it in a third person tells us that this is not based on experience. This is based on someone else's experience because we're speaking of her in the third person. First person would be like me, I'm talking about myself, or us, a group. Second person would be I'm talking about you. I'm saying you are experiencing this. You are doing this. You are going here. You are going to do this. That would be second person, is you, or you all. Third person would be, I could say she, he, or them if I was plural. So each one of these, first person plural would be us and we. First person singular would be me or I. Second person singular would be you. Second person plural would be you all. And then, or if you're from the South, you could say y'all. And then third person singular would be third person would be she, he, or it, and then third person plural would be they, them, that kind of thing. So you can see the difference in those. All right, so the number 2 on this page, and this will be the last question that we kind of go over for this one. So this is maybe a little bit shorter video, but I can't really go on. There's a lot of work to go on the next couple pages, and that will probably take one whole lesson all by itself. So that will be for Friday this week. Number 2 says, which phrase from memorable milestones, space shuttle missions, helps the reader understand the meaning of the word ascent? They have the word ascent underlined for us here in paragraph 3. Well, we could go to paragraph 3. We probably need to do that. We need to make sure it's the right article. So we don't want to go to space and back because this tells us that it's from memorable milestones. We need to make sure to go to the right article. And if we do, we go to paragraph 3, and it says, during the ascent, Ride acted as flight engineer. So what does that mean? During the ascent, during the space shuttle's ascent into the sky, what does that mean? And it means that that was lifting the Challenger, the lifting Challenger. Ready for the challenge? Nope, that is not it. You can cross that one off if you want. You don't have to, but It acted as flight engineer. Well, she did act as flight engineer, that is true, but she did it while the Challenger was ascending, while it was in its ascent, while it was going up. And then finally, D, once in orbit. So no, it's not once it's in orbit, it kind of was in orbit then. It is no longer lifting quite the same way. So the correct answer would be B. It's a weird way to say it, I think, lifting Challenger. I would say maybe I would probably word that differently, but that's what the answer they're looking for, I believe. So 2 should be B, and I am going to leave that there for today, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow in another video where we will also cover some questions and some writing on pages 256, I believe. It should be over 256, 257, where you will answer a few more questions and do a bit of writing on this topic. And you guys take it easy.